wake up this morning.
Which email address did you send it to?
What email did you send that document to? Your town one?
Could you send it to wilts32
Yes.
at Gmail?
All right, I'm gonna get started here. It is 9 o'clock, Monday, April 21st, 2025. I'll call this meeting of the Board of Harbor Commissioners for the Town of LaPointe to order. With us this morning, we have Mary Ross,
Present.
Michael Collins,
Here.
Evan Erickson,
Here.
myself, and via Zoom, we have Jay Wiltz, and
Here.
on the phone, we have Glenn Carlson.
Here.
Staff present, we have Lauren Berteau and Katie Kisner, and from the public, we have Paul Brummer and Olive Montang. First up on the agenda is public comment. Go ahead, Paul.
Unusual, let's move this meeting to 5 o'clock instead of 8 or 9 in the morning.
I'll have a public comment. Condolences to the Russell family for the passing Gary. He was a great man for the community. And he did an excellent job of running Miffle to help the community out. Very sad with the passing. I also just want to give a thanks to the crew that worked for Sunday for working on Easter Sunday. Much appreciated. Here.
Nice. Evan. We had a couple of comments that came in through the town website. Here's the first one. I'm asking for a copy of this quarter's profit and loss statement. Asking that there be 2 meetings open to the public in the evening for questions, like the annual town meeting with the board. If you were thinking of an evening meeting, why wait? Just do it. Thanks, John Carlson. And the second one came in while we were meeting March 20th, and then we didn't get to it the last couple of meetings for technical reasons or otherwise, but here goes. This morning at 7:20 a.m. while sitting in my vehicle, I'd gotten a ride. At the end of the island dock with multiple bags to carry on the boat, I was waiting to get in the first boat leaving. Matthew, deckhand, started raising the ramp, so I jumped out of the vehicle asking if I could get in that boat. And as Matthew continued to raise the ramp and the boat started pulling away, Matthew said, "The ramp is being raised." Really? I am appalled. His reply and regular lack of clarity on which morning boat to get on so that I can get to work on time. This week alone, I was directed to get on one boat and within minutes told to get on the other because it was leaving first. These experiences are ridiculous and so very irritating. Today's morning experience was a horrible way to start my day. I want to know which ferry is leaving first and directed clearly to get on it. I believe Karen was the captain of the ferry that left abruptly this morning and responsible for addressing the deckhand, Matthew, working under her this morning, Elizabeth Ellis. Is there any more public comment?
One more that came in.
That one wasn't requested to
Oh,
be read in a public comment, but I could read it.
sorry. I didn't.
It was included there. I'm not going to read it. Next up, introduction of new harbor commissioner. I think we'd all like to welcome Mary Ross this morning.
Look forward to working with you all.
I think you're going to be a terrific asset to this board. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
I will not be leaving you notes.
You can just shoot me emails then.
Perfect. It will be as sarcastic.
Let's jump into the minutes then of the April 4th meeting. And I was going to do them separately, but we can approve them both together.
I move that we approve the April 4th and the 17th minutes.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, Chief Administrative Officer report.
Okay, and this is an update from last Thursday. But the current balance of Harbor Commission bank account says as of Tuesday, April 15th. The utility checking account is at $202,290.67. Just a current update on that, for just over 325,000 in that account right now. April revenue as of Tuesday was at just under 58,000, which was about 53% of the budgeted income for the month.
Yeah,
So
good.
we're right on track. With that, Glenn and I had met with Rick Geisen a couple weeks back, and he had sent us like a follow-up email with a bunch of different requests as far as the budget goes and everything. All of those requests have been sent to him. Including one of those requests was the list of the capital projects, which I kind of took what we had been using for the budget, put it into spreadsheets for different years, sent it off to Cal to approve, or
At
maybe
the Ayers.
it's not the Ayers.
Not-
No, so that was basically the list that Cal had given.
Oh, I got it.
at the very,
Yeah,
during the purchase. Went through and Cal made some updates on that. Just like to point out that he took out over $100,000 in capital projects for 2025. What most of those were reduction in cost with like the purchase of the hose clamp. And also like he said that if he can get, for like the fuel tank cleanings, if he can get two of them scheduled at the same time, it cuts the cost in half. So just wanted to point that out. And then last on my report, just the records request update, that pretty lengthy one that we had received. Lauren did respond to that with all of the documents that we had.
thank you.
together for
That's
that.
sure.
We haven't heard back or anything.
He just said thank you and it would take some time for him to review. Yes,
Okay.
but no immediate.
Thank you for getting all that together. I'll make a motion to put Chief Administrative Officer's report on file.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, discuss tariff modifications. I think Glenn actually requested to have this put on the agenda. But I do have one topic that I would like the board to mull over. I got an email and had a long discussion with Mike Wiggins and Jill Eloff from the museum. And they're under significant budget cuts and they're trying to see how they can take steps towards keeping the museum open and viable. And one of their ways of doing that is bringing in school groups. And they are actually, I think, waiving the cost for certain school groups for admission. And she was actually reaching out mostly to determine what our current arrangement is with Bayfield School, because we have a sort of free field trip policy with them currently. But I wondered if it would make sense for us to consider a more inclusive student rate, like student group rate that would cover some of the area schools.
That exists.
To encourage, it does? Well, they have the 50 cents off per,
No, there was something that I guess I have no idea what's going on with it, but we offered a program called the Island School Program,
Okay.
which
Oh.
included the ferry boat. Michelle got on the school bus and did a tour and they spent time at the museum. And the ferry boat fee was,
Waived.
well, no, it was significantly reduced.
Okay, so that policy is in existence?
It was in the spring of 2024. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's off,
I don't know
it's,
if it made it into the current tariffs.
Yeah,
well, it never was part of the tariff.
Okay.
and we
Well, at
have
least
to,
years past.
well, and from some of the information that we got from the information requests, we have found that we cannot deter from the tariff whether it's up or down. We have to charge at that rate. So in order to,
Less either.
yeah, that it's.
Okay, well, then the
it's-
first year, last year, just kind of
Yeah.
happened because everyone was learning.
Yeah, well, and this is even when it was a private company, there was.
Even when it was.
Yes, yep. So if we want to implement this, we'll have to resubmit a tariff.
Well, what's the downside of resubmitting it to?
Just time.
Yeah, it probably won't be ratified until after, the program was only offered in the spring. It was kind of the end of a year field trip. It wasn't 365 days a year.
I think they're more looking forward to next spring's lineup.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah,
I think they have the slots filled with the Bayfield School and things,
Okay.
currently. And I don't, it's not like an emergent rush that we have to make a decision now. I just kind of.
No, but I think we all have the spirit of the group. We know we want.
And I don't think we can discriminate between area schools. We'd have to offer it to all schools.
Right.
We would just have to have that, written into another section of the tariff for.
Schools.
I don't know how we would word that, but I mean, it would be easy enough to add in. Yeah.
Is there a consensus that we want to do that? I think there is. I just want to go on record.
I think it's important for, children to experience a trip to the island and go to the museum
And for us to encourage that access.
Yeah, and I think it also encourages them to come back with their parents
Yeah.
potentially,
So the program was geared toward fourth graders because in fourth grade, the entire state of Wisconsin, DPI is, one of them is Wisconsin state history. And we kind of plays a significant role in that.
And with school budget cuts, they're cutting out field trips, so we can encourage schools to come here.
Was there any other thing in the tariff discussion?
that was all that I had. I don't know if, Glenn, are you still on the line?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, we're having a hard time hearing it, Glenn. You're breaking up and it sounds like you're in the background.
Oh, good, better.
Hmm. We have to make some modifications to the tariff to make sure that we're within the statutes. I don't know, should the committee that was working on, I guess you and I, Glenn and Katie, should we work at modifying the tariffs at some point, kind of have a sit down? Okay, well, when you're back and Katie's available and I'm available, we could find a time to meet and make a new submission of the tariffs so that we have everything in there with the school contract and look at encouraging field trips for area school or schools overall. And maybe look at some of the suggestions that were given with the email with the information requests in terms of freight.
Does anyone have anything else under that item? Let's move on then to agenda item 8, updates on late boats for after-school activities.
So morning, everyone. The updates on that is so far it's been going really good. I was able to get a satellite image of the lake From the 16th, I think was like one of the last clear days. And I think on the 19th, there was another partially clear day. It looks like, you know, most of the ice is off the lake. There's still just a few pieces out there, but I don't think that that's quite the concern anymore. I don't think we're going to run into that. So I think we're in a spot where we're going to be safe to start, you know, operating after dark without, you know, fear of ice problems. So that does help quite a bit. So I think we're at a stage where, you know, I guess that was a question that I wanted to ask the parents, but I'm curious how much longer you know, they need these trips, how much longer the soccer goes, because I would propose we, you know, start next week, you know, with publicizing it and, you know, getting it kind of out there for everybody else to go on. But I don't know how long it's going to last. We now, you know, are going into the late nights on Friday. And so I'm just, you know, trying to get an assessment on, you know, how much longer this is so we can get kind
Do
of
you
an
recall
accurate.
the end date?
Providing the end date.
I'm not sure there was an end date, no, we can reach out to.
We'll reach out.
The school's here, I
Right,
think.
In there was soccer and then track and field as well.
Right, and there's talk of gymnastics too.
I think the gymnastics is a wash at this point, but I would,
I'll shoot an email to Hillary and Elena and verify what that end date is for their soccer.
that sounds good. And I would at the same time encourage advertising those trips so we can boost ridership even for the one this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. So one of the issues is if we're going to be running it as a kind of a public trip and I have no idea of who could possibly show up. You know, I'd like to run it with 3 crew as opposed to just 2. So, you know, that's where I only have 2 crews scheduled. So if I can get a third, you know, that would be my preference for Wednesday. I can start looking into that. There's a good chance I can do it. But that's just kind of one of my hurdles.
Sounds fair to me.
Yeah. Thanks, Cal.
Yep. And then I don't know too, you know, the last component of that is, you know, we're running a 7 right now, which is, you know, they're kind of showing up 6:50, you know, ready to go. It seems to be working. Of course, you know, from my standpoint is the earlier I can get my crew home, the better, because often, you know, I have to call them in to work the next morning. You know, so they've got to be in work at, you know, 6:30 a.m. So, you know, that's going to be kind of the other component is seeing, you know, do they need, you know, because originally we were talking about a 7:30. So I'm going to see if they additionally, you know, the reason we didn't go with the 7:30 is so that we could operate as much during daylight as possible. So I'm going to see too if they, you know, need that 7:30. But again, from my perspective, if they don't need that 7:30,
They were asking for a 7.
I think it was 7:30, so
Yeah.
we could leave Ashland at 7.
Initially, I've been reading through some of the stuff and it was 7:30, but it was agreed
7 would work.
at 7.
Okay.
So I just want to see if that can continue to work because I would like to keep it at 7 just so I could get my crew home earlier. So again, that'll be kind of an update that we'll have to figure out if that's able. But you know, operating after dark now really just poses the same weather risks that it does throughout the rest of the year. So nothing too bad.
Good.
Does anyone have anything else there? Thank you, Cal. Let's move on then to Board of Commissioners of Public Lands loan update.
Yeah, the loan the process was delayed submission, so it needs to be resubmitted. My hope is that we get the corrected thing out to the BCDL couple of days.
Okay. So
Thanks.
when would we see an approval date then for the loan? Roughly,
Hopefully it'll be on at their May 6th meeting. We've already approved, the town board and the harbor commission have already signed the loan.
yeah.
It's just that it was not mailed overnight, and it took actually 2 weeks to get to them.
Oh,
And when it got to them, they discovered that we had an error in our listing of prior general obligation debts. And that error caused us to appear to be over our limit. And so we need to correct that and get that back to them.
And glad, just for the record, we're not over, or we've got a lot of headspace, don't we?
I'm not hearing whatever.
Oh,
Michael asked, if, we're not over our budget limit. We have a lot of headspace,
Borrowing limit.
borrowing limit.
That is true. The town has, I think, about $4 or $5 million borrowed right now.
good. Thank you.
I think while we're still on this, I believe one of the vouchers that we have is going to be the invoice for Cal Rops. Did that make it into this?
Yep.
Were you able to talk with Cal about how this is gonna be paid and what our options are? I mean, I believe that we're requesting tomorrow night at tomorrow night's town board meeting, a short-term loan from the town.
Yes. We're looking at 100,000.
In the event that they're not in that position, I'm curious about like protocol, is there a set account that this money needs to come out of? Like, would we pay it? Could it be paid by Miffle? Are they gonna manage that end of it out of their personal account, or are we gonna utilize the utility account?
What are you referring to?
To the payment of invoices related to the HAP application, HAP grant.
Yeah, we could probably hold off on that until we find out that we've got more committed on.
But we'll know tomorrow.
I'm just, Cal, yeah, go ahead, Cal.
Yeah, so the way that the cleanest way for this to work is to have either the harbor commission, the cleanest way is for whatever account is getting reimbursed, which is the town's account, is to have that account pay it. So that's going to be, so the best way is I'm going to send invoices to Katie, which, she has one, have the town pay it out of that. Then all I need is proof that those funds have been withdrawn. So once I have proof that those funds are withdrawn, so it's like the funds have been removed from the account, then we can only submit one bill a month. So it's best to say, okay, we've paid the Cabs and Rops and we've paid the Cooper Engineering. The funds have been withdrawn from the account. We have proof of that. We submit that to the state for reimbursement, and then the money goes right back into that account. And then there's a couple of catches to that. They submit the the 80% back minus I believe it's a 5 from memory. It's a minus again an additional 5%. So I believe they only reimburse 75% back. That 5% holdout. Then once the project is complete, then they reimburse the rest of that 5% as well.
Okay. That clears it up for me. I think we want to streamline the process and use the same account all the way through.
So it will be paid out of the mutual utility when it's paid.
Moved.
And then Al and I and Katie will come up with a system for getting each other both the invoices and then the reimbursement paperwork. And I believe that they'll send us a check though for the reimbursement. I don't think they're gonna just deposit the money into our account.
So I believe that's however you've done it in the past. So what you have on record and file with them is what we're going to continue to use. So because we didn't create a new account, so it would be what has been done in the past for the last HAP grant. If they sent a check, then it'll be a check. I think there isn't. I thought there was an option to have it sent directly into the account, but I believe that's set up. When you set up that account with the state. So we're using the town's account, not the harbor commission's And so, yeah, so however that is traditionally done, would be the exact same.
You have to double check on that because in 2019, I believe, is when the other HOP project was done. That pretty much it's a whole new staff. So we'll need to figure out exactly how it was done. And then that would have gone to the town's general fund account, not the Mifflin utility account. So.
And this one should go to the general town account as well, I believe. Because that's what the state wanted to know which, we'd have had to set up a new account for it to go somewhere else. And in speaking with Glenn, they just wanted to reuse the account that was essentially on file to just make it that much easier. And so that's kind of what I'm saying is it's the account that's on file with the state. And I believe I have some of that information I can share with you, offline here, all of the information that I have, the emails that I have to that effect. But we're using the existing account. We didn't create a new one, so it follows the same, path to what account it goes back into.
Let's move on to Harbor Assistance Program project updates. Do you have anything else on that front, Cal?
Let's see here. I was just trying to pull up, just to have a kind of a response there. Yeah, that's what Glenn and I talked about April 7th. The reimbursement will be sent to the town of La Pointe's existing account. So that's what I've got. So as far as and then he said the town and harbor commission should be able to work out the ultimate bookkeeping between them. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. As far as updates with it, so everything is going well. The kind of the catch here at the moment is we're behind schedule. I think that I've said that I was really pushing to be done before July weekend. At this point, after going over it with the engineer on site and looking at everything, it is appearing unlikely that we're going to have it done for the 4th, which kind of puts us in an interesting spot. So some of the options that we have here is we can wait till after the 4th to get started. We could wait till fall, which that would be the lowest priority. That'd be the lowest option. Or what I believe is the best course of action here is to just get started as soon as possible. It is likely at this stage it'll run into it'll run into the 4th of July weekend. We'll be down that ramp for the 4th of July. However, the two big boats can share the B ramp for that weekend, which shouldn't have really a significant impact on operations. The only thing that's going to happen then is the Island Queen, which would be our 4th boat, would have to operate out of Old Harbor. So for Bayfield, that's going to be the least impactful. We're just going to send 12 cars over. But that's essentially what it means is, for the 4th of July weekend, we're going to have to pull 12 cars out of line, loop them over to Old Harbor to get through that. So I don't think it's going to be I don't think it would have a disruption of service, but it would have a slight, disruption of traffic flow on kind of that 4th of July weekend for the city of Bayfield, just because we're sending 12 cars down to Old Harbor Dock. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, that's not locked in at this point. But the budget that I had, the extra weeks that I had budgeted to try and stay ahead of that have been used up, getting all of the kind of the pieces to fall to this point. So if everything went absolutely perfectly, there's still a chance that we could have it done by then. But in construction, I've never really planned on that. So that's what we're looking at. The reason that we, the the sooner the better, even though that, you know, again, it would shut down that ramp for the 4th of July expense. The cost of the ramp goes up significantly the longer we wait. If the water comes up throughout the summer and we wait to start later, you know, a 3 to 6 inch difference in water height, you know, could have a $100,000 impact on the cost of this project. So it's one of those things that it's, yes, there'd be an inconvenience. Out of all the ramps I've ever built, you know, that mild inconvenience is soon forgotten the second it opens up and is back online. And the cost savings of trying to get it done sooner than later, I think, is ultimately worth it.
I think you make a persuasive case to start now or as soon as you can, and then march through that weekend. You've got, by the sound of it, it's sort of almost an administrating problem, so much as it's not really ultimately a service problem. So I just think that concern about the rising lake and the additional cost is real.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen.
Yep.
And so the sooner we can get this thing behind us before that rise, I think we should.
I agree. I think Cal has the best interest of all of us in mind there.
Yeah, and I think again, it's everything's looking really good. You know, the first sit down with the engineers, you know, we've walked through the project. There's been no major surprises so far. You know, they've agreed with the you know, that the drawings that I drew up on kind of what I'm hoping to do for this project. They've agreed with those. They feel that they're possible and that they're sound. You know, so there wasn't any major surprises when we walked through and said, you know, hey, I want a wall here, I want cement here, I want this. You know, there wasn't any like, oh no, that won't work. So that's good, because that means that the budget that we've, you know, set for building the dock is still, you know, a really good solid budget. So that's, again, really good news on that front. It's just the timing.
Anything else? I'll move that we move agenda item 11 to after agenda item 15.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Right.
Opposed? So that brings us to the approval of bills. Herein lies the crux, is the cash flow. We were kind of banking on having that money from the Bureau of Land Commissioners.
And so Zach, we had brought this up, and then also I discussed it with Glenn, and he thought that it was a good idea. Basically, for the March expenses, which are the stack right here, to go to Miffle and discuss their working capital cash flow that they have right now, and see if that reimbursement can be given to them as soon as we have the loan, which their next meeting is May 6th. And so
we'll hold off on reimbursement to Miffle and get cabin.
I mean, but it's an option. That's because, that plus the loan from the town, the 150. It's gonna be tight for these next like 2-3 weeks.
And the Commissioner of Public Land loan is $500,000?
800. Yeah, and that's specifically to fund.
Is there another alternative anyone's discussed? If Glenn feels comfortable with that too, because town board's in this equation. That means we make a request to Miffle.
Yeah, and that was basically today. I wanted to make sure that's really the only solution that I can come up with. We're gonna need to hold off on one of the payments in that stack, at least until that time frame.
And how much time, how much delay will you think there will be?
A week.
Okay, I'm in favor of doing that.
Yeah, for when we would generally get those reimbursements back to them, it's I mean, it's basically delaying it like a week, week and a half
Okay.
than what they would normally do. But it's also hesitate to delay any sort of payments for the HAP project because it's, once they're paid, then,
Gets into a cycle.
yeah, we
Yeah, of
request
course. The
reimbursement.
quicker they're paid, the quicker
Yep.
the money comes back.
30 days, they say.
I was just gonna ask you, did they say it's a
They-
30-day turnaround?
Yeah.
Estimated.
And we want to get that part of the project building. What is the lead time for the cabin ROPS ramps to be built and delivered?
So those are on track. Last I spoke to her last week, we should be on track with everything to have those by mid-June. So the ramps won't be the holdup, but the thing that we want to do is, you know, pay for the ramps in full now to get reimbursement now, so that it's less money out all at once. If we pay 50% of the ramp now and 50% later, that 50% is going to stack up with all of the construction going on. So it's just going to add another, you know, 55,000 during that time. If that's the way that the Harbor Commission would like to proceed, it's not a problem. We need a minimum 50% right now. But that was somewhat of my plan to reduce the overall cash out, was pay for this now. We're under contract,
Won't you just go?
get it
Well,
reimbursed.
For your understanding, then, Miffle is gonna have to wait for their reimbursement until, I would say, next Thursday.
No,
No.
No?
until we get money from the road commissioners public lands.
Or at least,
And they're meeting May 6th.
Yeah,
Until we get that.
Well, until we get the short-term loan from the town. Right? Because Glenn was talking about
a
150.
combination of both,
Okay,
having both of those things that are
Yeah.
gonna squeak us through the next 3 weeks. So, I mean,
But
that
the-
is an option to do the 50% that would have
Yep.
50,000. I mean, maybe just for this particular,
When do we anticipate the invoice from the engineering firm?
I essentially have that, you know, right now. I just wanted to get an updated one, but it's essentially what's sent in the bid. So, I mean, there has been no changes to that invoice.
Ideally, I would like to see both of those paid immediately so that we can start the submission process and then withhold whatever portion we need to from reimbursement to Miffle. But I don't know that that's possible on your end.
yeah, that would be a discussion we need to have.
well, we should have that discussion.
Yeah.
well, we would need to approve cabin ROPS today so that the check is sent to them and is deposited before the end of the month. Because next Thursday will be too late.
It doesn't, just from my, and I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but from my end, the once a month isn't bound to, you know, like the 1st, the 2nd, the 5th. It's just once per 30 days is what they want to see. So if we submit on, you know, the 28th, if we say, hey, the check's been removed from our account, then, you know, we have to wait 30 days before asking for the next one. So, I mean, again, that is an option too, to say, okay, we've paid 50%, we've paid Cooper, so that's about 100,000. And then we wait 30 days. And as soon as we're at 30 days, we eye it up and say, okay, maybe we just ask for the other 50,000 now because we're not quite to paying for the, you know, construction portion. But I do believe 30 days from now, you know, we will be right at approving, even less than that, hopefully approving that, you know, so we could then rope in another portion of the construction with that payment. So the 50,000 of cabs and ROBs and maybe a down payment on the construction. Just throwing it out there as kind of options and kind of a game plan.
Not sure how this would look in a motion.
I don't think it needs one. What we do want to do is have that conversation.
Well, if we're, I mean, as far as approval of bills, which
Oh, I see.
is where we're
Yeah,
at
okay.
on the agenda.
Well,
Maybe a motion to pay for 50% of the cap and ROPS, and that's it.
Did we table it until after this discussion with Miffle? And meet again?
Sure.
table
All the finance aspects of this.
right.
Because that discussion, that's a good idea. Because it,
If it's possible, in my mind, to pay the complete cabs and ROPS
That'd
and
be
the
great.
engineering and submit that whole thing right away.
Yeah.
Um,
sooner we get reimbursed.
the sooner we get reimbursed, it starts the ball rolling for all the rest of the reimbursements. Cal had said that the first one's gonna take the longest,
Yeah.
because there's some administrative stuff.
Well, we can at least, we could pay 50% of the cabin ROPS now to get them started. And then in the next meeting or two, once we figure out short-term loan from the town and,
Kind of important to know what Mithel's response is going to be though.
Yeah, I mean,
because we want to get cabin ROPS moving, right?
So, I mean, how, we have a long working relationships with Cabs and ROPS. And now that we've, come to this agreement, they've already started the process. Now, technically, they wouldn't start the process until they have the 50% in hand, but they've already started because they have a long working relationship with the ferry line. So the ball is rolling. Yes, I would recommend getting them the 50% as soon as possible so that they're not, hanging up on that. But at this stage, on kind of my good word that they know that this is going to go through and we've got an agreed contract, they've already started that process because we wouldn't hit the deadline if they didn't for June.
Well, how about this? What if we paid the Bremer Bank loan 50% of cabin ROPS to for good faith and get them moving? I mean, they're already going. And 50% of Miffle LLC reimbursement for this meeting so that they have some more working capital. No, we can't do that? Okay.
Then you wouldn't have any money to pay Cooper Engineering firm or the rest of that counts and ROPS, but not the state. If you do the full reimbursement.
Yeah,
Well, I was thinking half of the Miffle reimbursement.
actually, no, so we do have, I mean, the request for, hang on, I'm pulling up the.
it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did. So I think without holding back on the Miffle reimbursement, like if we paid that, that's the only things that we haven't paid are, actually, I don't think I've pulled anything out yet. We basically would have 30 grand left in that utility account.
Yeah.
That's for everything that I know right now
Yeah,
that I can take out of that. But we still have not, that's not including the Cooper Engineering.
Yeah.
It would give us a little bit of wiggle room to hold back that 200,000. If they can delay that reimbursement in their cash flow, if that like 2 weeks is not going to make or break.
Does Cal know the answer to that question? Or is
That's
this a
another
Robin
thing.
question?
I'm not sure how when this
Yeah.
conversation can happen.
Yeah, I would have to sit down with Robin. I mean, I have an idea, but without sitting down and looking at everything very thoroughly, I wouldn't want to answer that question.
Do we meet on Thursday? Would that give you time to talk with Robin to figure out where you guys are at? And I'm just,
I think because the nature of kind of where we're at, yeah, I think we can kind of bump that up as a high priority, sit down and get some answers.
okay, and then we would meet on Thursday.
again, this week.
But yeah, this is kind of important, this one.
Mhm.
It's worth it separate. Okay, thank you. If you can expedite that conversation, Cal, that would be good. We'll meet again Thursday, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll do.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table well, do we want to get Bremer Bank paid?
It was our opinion.
Okay. I'll approve the payment to Bremer Bank of $3,229.17. And we will table the payments to Cabin Rops for $109,000, $725,000. And the reimbursement to Miffle LLC of $200,000, $183.13.
And I'll second that.
There's no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So future agenda items. That's
Well,
certainly one there.
Right.
I guess that will probably be the majority of our
That'll be the sole
discussion.
agenda. Might be a quick meeting.
With any luck.
If anything else I don't know, is there anything else that you can think of, Lauren?
Only other thing I came up throughout the meeting was the tariff modifications, but I.
That'll be,
a little-
I don't know, where is Glenn? Is he on a,
He's on the road, right?
yeah,
It's a little short notice, I
I'm just
think.
gonna-
yeah,
Gonna be back though for tomorrow night's meeting?
Yes,
okay.
he'll be here later on today.
I guess just throw the tariff modification discussion on there, and if we
Yeah.
haven't met, then we don't talk about it.
So. And then I was gonna keep on there the HOP project update, whether or not it'll be when, I'm just gonna keep that also. on.
I think that should be on all of them.
I guess the important part is that Cabin Rops has ordered their steel and they're starting work, and this is not gonna delay them on delivering the ramps.
Not yet, not as I understand it today, and I can confirm that with her, but last we spoke, that was where we were at. So I believe we're good. I feel pretty confident in it.
Last thing we have is a concrete well and no ramps for 2 weeks.
Well, I guess if that was the worst case, we've built them out of wood for 100 years, we could fashion something together. But I don't think that's the case. I think the ramps are well ahead, no pun intended there, well ahead of the well.
Thank you, Cal. Seriously, it's great.
So next Thursday, what time? 9?
Yeah. Quick meeting.
It really will be a one item agenda for a meeting too. Well, maybe.
I guess that's July. What month are we in? April. So that'll be the 24th.
Yep.
Now, like John said, should we just schedule an evening meeting for, the public to come in and ask questions and discuss? I mean, we don't have to have an elaborate agenda.
No, when do we want to do that?
I would think one at the end of the month, every month would be suffice, I would think, to the public. That would give them time to, if they choose to review any supporting documents. I mean, our most important meetings are essentially the middle of the month. That's when we get our expenses and the majority of the work happens. And the end of the month would be a good time for the public to come in and ask questions.
Would that be our regularly scheduled meeting, but we just schedule it later in the day?
Yeah,
In other words, we're not creating a new agenda for that meeting. It's not.
Yeah, that kind of sounded like part of the request to me was almost a question and answer.
Yeah.
have the
I agree.
public come in and ask questions as to what's happening in the world of.
Yeah, but it would be good if that's just another item on the agenda of a regular meeting. So we don't have to have an extra meeting is what I'm getting at.
We have public comment built into them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just looking at,
What would that?
like April 1st or May 1st, May 1st. As that's a Thursday. If we did a Thursday evening, of course, we have to consult the calendar.
Well, let's stick with our Thursday morning meeting this week.
This one,
And,
yeah.
we can think about further out. And
Agenda.
I don't know if it makes sense to have the public at the meeting when we do the majority of the bills. It'd be nice to get that down to, the monthly I guess it kind of is, but
Well, yeah, but at the end of the month is when the bills have already been paid. And it would give, if people want to look in, gives them time to see the meeting. Ask for if they want to see the bills, the financial reports Katie has done, have been done. Gives people time to look at them, and at the end of the month, when we have an evening meeting, if people have questions, they can come in, give public comment. Or we have a question and answer session of that meeting and then have our regular business on top.
That's where I'm going. So we don't find ourselves
The last week of the month
a longer
is the
meeting.
evening meeting.
Right.
is Glenn still with us?
No.
Okay, I know
We
he had
can-
something he wanted to get to.
Thursday.
Thursday we can discuss further.
Yeah, okay. But I think that's,
Jay, you'll be back Thursday?
Yes, yeah, I'll attend to,
no.
every meeting. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know who you said.
That's
Are we
okay.
talking about 2 days from now or next Thursday?
2 days from now.
3 days.
Three.
I will be traveling probably.
All right. Well, we can have that discussion. Glenn will be back.
Yeah.
Sue, I don't know where she'll be.
I should be able to Thursday.
Okay, good.
All right.
So we're still sticking to the 9 AM on this thing.
Yeah, this Thursday.
Is this-
Assuming that works for everyone here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make it
Okay.
work.
And then let's go on to public comment B.
Oh,
It's admirable you're talking about giving a special discount to school groups to come over here as the Fairline, the last ownership group did. But you have to remember, you've got some major debt you have to pay off, unlike the last group. It sounds to me just in the last few minutes, you're in some cash. This is a really a good idea to lower the rates for someone else to come over here. I can certainly see local people, people live on the island, but if someone from Park Falls or Superior or wherever wants to come here, you're just gonna have to pay what everyone else does. I mean, we're having to pay for this, things go south out of our own taxes. If another school district has to raise their mill rate a little bit, raise their budget a little bit, if parents gotta kick in a little bit, so be it. You go someplace, they're not giving you a special discount because you're from Madeline Island, the epicenter of Wisconsin history.
Go ahead, Cal.
I just wanted to welcome Mary. That's exciting, and thanks for signing up for that.
Thank you.
As far as, so we'll return to agenda item 11 now.
You want that back on?
No, it's fine.
Everybody else?
yeah,
I think we're good. Thank you.
We'll go back to agenda item 11, review of the Madeline Island Ferry Line management contract. I'm inclined to just wait until Thursday to get into this when everyone's here.
yeah. Well, actually, I think we should, for a minute, go into
Okay.
closed session.
Oh,
All right.
okay, all right.
You want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session under state statute 19.851E.
I'll second.
Roll call vote for this. Mary Ross,
Yes.
Jay Welts,
Yeah.
Michael Collins,
Yeah.
Evan Erickson.
Yes.
I'm a yes.